Today we are notating the music to Ghost of John. First things first, we need to draw our measures. We need 8 measures in total. Draw those bar lines at the end of each staff and then at the middle of each staff. Draw those treble clef signs at the beginning of each staff. And then we're ready to begin drawing a sharp sign on the top F line. Making sure that that line goes right in the middle of the little square. Right there. Moving on to our next staff. Doing the exact same thing, draw that sharp sign, making sure that top line is right through the middle of the square. Keep it up. This is still kind of hard drawing while filming. It doesn't always look the best. Now we're moving on to draw our 4/4 time signatures right after our key signatures. 1 4 on top of the other 4. You got it. It's time to notate, starting with the quarter note on our bottom E line. Fill in that note head. And add that stem. Hugging up against that bottom E line, you are making a D, quarter note again. Add that stem. Next one, we are doing another E again on our line, making sure our E line is right in the middle of our note head. Now we need a ledger line here. So get that ruler out, draw that ledger line just like I did. We're hugging up against that C ledger line, going right below it to draw a B quarter note. Fill it in, add your stem. Each of the quarter notes equals 1 beat. So 1 + 1 + 1 equals 4. So we have 4 beats in the first measure. Moving on to the second measure. We are going to start by making a ledger line. Get that C ledger line right there. We're making a C quarter note. Making sure our note head has the ledger line right in the middle of it. Filling it in. We will make a stem and then move on to our next note, which will be a D. We are going to hug up against this E line of our staff. Right below it. A quarter note again, so fill in that note head. Adding a stem. And then for our next note, we are making an E on the bottom E line. And this time it's a half note, so you don't even have to fill in that note head. Less work, yay. But add that stem. You got it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Because that half note is 2 beats, that's 4 beats in that second measure. We're moving on to our third measure. Starting on our second line, which is our G line, making it a quarter note, filling in that note head, and drawing a stem. Moving on to our next note, which is also a quarter note on the F space. So in that very first space, you're drawing your note head, filling it in, and drawing your stem. The next note is another G. So just like our first G in that measure, that third measure, we're making it on the same line, that second line. It's a quarter note, if you couldn't tell. And then we actually have two more notes. We are going to draw 2 8th notes. One on our B line, and just fill in that note head. And one in our A space, that second space right there. Making our stems, and then our 8th notes are holding hands. They're little friends. And those are each a half beat. So when they're holding hands right there, it's 1 beat. So we have 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats, and then those 2 8th notes are 4 beats. So 4 beats in that third measure. Moving on to our fourth measure, we are drawing a quarter note on the second line, which is our G line. On that first space, we are drawing a quarter note on the F space. Fill that baby in, add a stem. Ooh, next you're gonna love this. We have 4 more notes now. We are adding 4 8th notes. Our first 8th note goes on our first line, which is our E line. Our second 8th note goes on our first space, which is our F space. Our third 8th note goes on our second line, which is our G line. And our final 8th note is on the second space, which is our A space. Fill those babies in. You're going to add stems to each of them. And after you add those stems, you are going to draw a line to connect all 4 of them like they're holding hands, or I guess I should say holding stems. There you go. We're done with our 4th measure, which means we're halfway done. And 2 of those 8th notes equals 1 beat. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 beats. I really hope that makes sense to you guys. Each 8th note is a half a beat. We are moving on to our 5th measure, starting with a quarter note on the B line, our third line of the staff. We are drawing our stem going down on the left side. I'll explain that in a minute. Now we are drawing another quarter note in our A space, that second space, and our stem going up. Anytime you have a B or higher, you put the stem down. Anytime you have an A or lower, you put the stem up. I hope that explains why the stems are going up and down. Moving on to another quarter note, our third quarter note in the measure on our B line again. Of course, that means our stem is going down. Then we're adding 2 8th notes, one on the top space, which is our E space, and then another one on our 4th line, which is our D line. Those stems are going down, and then we are having them hold hands or stems. Move on over to the 6th measure. We are drawing a quarter note in the B line. I should say on the B line again, that 3rd line with our stem on the left side going down. After that, we have another quarter note on the A space, in the A space. Boy, I'm having problems speaking right now. With our stem moving up, going up on the right side. Next, we have another quarter note on our B line again. I think you got it. Yes, stem going down. We have those 3 notes. We need one more beat, so we are going to add a quarter rest. That's right. Wish me luck. I'm not the best at drawing quarter rests. Oh, that didn't look so bad. If you even come close to this, I'm fine with it. So you now have 4 beats. This quarter rest is 1 beat. Move on over to the bottom of the page to our 7th measure. We're almost done. Woo-hoo. We have a lot of 8th notes in this measure. Starting on our B line, our 3rd line, you are drawing 2 8th notes on our B line. Remember to get that line right in the middle of the note head with the stems going down and holding hands. Then 2 8th notes on our A space, our 2nd space with the stems going up, holding hands. Then next 2 8th notes on our G line, which is our 2nd line with the stems going up again, holding hands. And finally, we have a lone quarter note on the F space at the very bottom 1st space with the stem going up. Then we are done with our 7th measure and we can move on to our 8th measure. It's our last measure. Woohoo! Just a quick reminder that each measure has to have 4 beats. So these 8th notes are 1 beat. The 2nd set of 8th notes is 2 beats. The 3rd set is 3 beats, and that quarter note is the final beat. So that's 4 beats altogether. We are on our final measure, the 8th measure. Measure number 8. Make sure you draw a double bar line. I forgot to do that at the beginning. I forgot to say that at the beginning. It means the end of the song. So you have a thick bar at the end and then a thinner bar right in front of it. After that, we are starting by adding a quarter note on our E line, our very bottom line of the staff, filling that note head in, making sure our stem is up. Next, we are hugging against our E line, that bottom line, making a D quarter note, stem up again. And finally, we are adding a half note on our E line, that bottom line with our stem up, and we are done. That is it. We have 4 beats in the measure, quarter note, and a half note equals 4. And my composition is not the prettiest, but that's okay because I'm done.